What is up, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about what makes a cover good, what makes a cover bad, and we're going to start off with the actual bad, or the covers that really could be improved. So here we are with this cover. It's called Finding My Mate. It's a completed story, 52 parts. Now, what I always define as a good story, when I look at a book and I read its summary, I'm always looking for this ratio, 10 to 1. That's usually the ratio, in my own opinion, where you can tell if a story is decent, if the readers compare to the votes, if they're actually enjoying the story, and the quality of the story. And this is just a pattern I found over the years on Wattpad, that normally if you have a ratio of 10 to 1, so 10 reads for every 1 vote, your story's probably going to be pretty decent. And I think that ratio is a good ratio that draws in readers. Now, ideally you could do better than that, obviously, but that's like the ratio I think a lot of people should try to strive for. And here we're not seeing that ratio. We have about 111,000, so really we could just say this is 100,000, and what we'd ideally be looking for in votes here would be 10,000, or in this case over 10,000. And in this particular story here, we're seeing it fall short of that golden ratio, the 10 to 1 ratio. So anyway, let's take a look at their cover here. So here we have 2 wolves. Okay, that makes sense for their story, because this is probably a werewolf story. Let's just scroll down here and see for ourselves. Yes, it is. We have alpha, stuff like that. And so my problem with this cover is that it's not actually a picture, it's a painting. And that's okay if it's a painting, but we have part of the wolf here, it's cut off. And we also have this font, which is kind of weird to have in the title. And just imagine if this was like a book that you actually published. Chances are you're not gonna have a cover like this, because most people don't use, in a story like this, they're not gonna use a painting. It's probably gonna be like a photo or something else in an actual book that's being published. Now, if this were to, the painting's fine though, like for Wattpad in this case it's fine, I believe, but we have part of the picture cut off here, and the font color, I think they might have chose this color blue to make the title stand out from the background, but I definitely would not recommend using this font at all, or this color at all, because we do not, once we look at the covers that are pretty decent, most of them are not using this color or this font. Now, I do like here how she put their username here, and that's good, but we really don't need to have by here, because that's kind of clear. Like when people see this here, like common sense will tell them that this is probably the author right here. At least it is good how they have their title up at the top here, but that's pretty much all we can really say that's good here. Like the color scheme and the background do not go well together. Like it's just in this case we have the background cut off, and I'm sure you guys have seen so many covers like this where we have a painting or fan art in the background with like Times New Roman font and some kind of bright color to stand out. You don't want to do this, so this is a no-no. I mean, I'm not saying you can't read the book, I'm just saying that you don't want to do this for your cover. You're gonna lose readers because it just doesn't look clean and it's not very professional looking. Alright, let's move on. Alright, so another one, this is very similar to the last cover we looked at. It's called The Stars Lie, Mernon, Morganville Vampire. So this is probably a fan fiction if my memory serves right. And this font here is a little better than the last one we saw. It kind of fits with the story better. It's kind of creepy, like giving you that vampire vibe. So here we obviously have who I'm assuming is a vampire, one of the Morganville vampires. And one of the things we want to stay away from is that CGI, like, this is the kind of vibe I'm getting. It's like CGI, it's kind of like maybe fan art, and you could also call it, maybe it's a painting, but it really looks CGI to me, and I just don't like the way it looks. And even if we look down here, this is good how the author put their name here compared to the last one where they had by in front of the author name, but this is good here how it's in the corner. I like that. But we really need to stay away from the CGI look, because even if it's cool to the author, if you think the readers are going to see this character and recognize them, you really are better off using if this was a movie, I'm not sure if this was also a book, but I think this was a movie maybe. You could use a picture of the actor, and trust me, it's going to look better at least having the actor than this fan art. I understand fan art's cool and all, but like when we're doing books like this, you don't go to like Barnes and Noble or your local bookstore, and you're definitely not gonna see covers that look like this. I think this is a step up from the one we just saw, but we really want to stay away from CGI and fan art in our covers. And we also want to have our title normally in the middle or somewhere centered, because that's where the reader's eyes automatically go. They don't want to have to search to find the title. And especially when you're scrolling through Wattpad, remember this cover is going to be much smaller. So we want the title to stand out more. But it is good here how they use white lettering. That's very good, because white is usually the best, in my opinion, the best color that usually ends up working for all covers. We'll get more into that later. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the next story. Oh, we almost forgot to look at the ratio here. Another thing. So we almost have 200,000 reads here, and we have about 12,000 votes here. Again, and this is a 59-part story, which is pretty long, so good job on that. But we really want to, if this was an ideal story, if we go back to the golden ratio, the reads to votes here should be around 200,000 to 20,000. So since this is close to 200,000, we probably want to see at least 15, 16, 17,000 votes here, which we are not seeing. So in my case, this falls short of the golden ratio, so I'm not saying it means it's a bad book, I'm just saying that we want to look for that ratio. So we'll go ahead and look at the next one. So this one is called Ill-Conceived Plans. Looking at the ratio, we have about, we'll just round this up to 70,000 reads, and ideally we would see 7,000 votes. And if this was, let's just say this was 60,000 even, we would still want to see about 6,000 votes here, which we're not. So this falls short of the golden ratio once again. Okay, so I think a lot of that, just while we're talking about the ratio and why these ones are falling short, is I think mainly because of not because of the cover, but because of the actual content of the story. But we're gonna talk about that in another video more in depth. So here we have Ill-Conceived Plans, and again, this is another cover where we have to search to find the title. And imagine if this story was like basically like 1 inch in size on your phone. Like, are you gonna be able to like glance at this for 1 second and make out the title? Probably not, because it blends in almost on the fridge, and you can't see like what these letters are, and I'm sure most people can't see when they're scrolling through on their phone. And believe it or not, I think most people on Wattpad now are using the app. I think we're seeing a progression of people going away from the computer and just solely going on Wattpad on their phone, because now you can write stories on your phone and everything else. And I'm not sure, but I think clubs may be moving on to mobile, but I'm not sure, 100% sure about that. But we really, really want to make sure that you can see the title, that it's centered, that it's in big white lettering or lettering that you can easily see. And going back to this one, in this case, this story is better in that category. You can at least see their title easier and the author's name easier than if we go here, where we really can't see anything. And even if I squint, I can't even read the author's name. So this is something we want to stay away from. This is a no-no. We want the author's name to be clear, and we want the title to be clear. Normally we want them in big letters that are somewhat bigger, that we can see them without having to search. In this case, you really do have to search. Okay, so now let's move on to the next story. Alright, so this is our last one that we're going to talk about that really needs improved. So here we have a story called Blood and More, Barely Edited, and the good thing about this story is that it matches the golden ratio. This is a 78-part story. It's been a long time since I've seen a story that long. 78 parts. Now, the ratio here we have about 358,000 to 35,000, so really this is 350,000 to 35,000. This hits the golden ratio. So this is pretty impressive for a story that long to hit the golden ratio. Now, enough about the golden ratio, let's talk about the actual cover. So what we're seeing in the cover here, we have these two probably characters from a show or something, which is good. but the way in which these pictures are lined up just doesn't really look pleasing. There's also another image all the way in the back, and then we have these two shapes here, these two long rectangles that just don't fit the theme of the title. So just looking at this, I can tell it's probably about adventure, romance, and clearly war by the title. But we really need to, either this could have been photoshopped where her face could have been enlarged, or we could have just used one character, or maybe somehow fit both with like his face in the background or her face behind his. But one of these, in my opinion, should have been enlarged, and maybe they could have just chose one character, and if they made a second book, which they probably could have done if they chopped it in half, could use the other character, or they could have not used photos at all and gotten away with it. But the main problem we're seeing here is the way in which the pictures are lined up. It just doesn't look clean because one of them has like a gray background and the other has like a shadowy dark background that actually goes more with the picture all the way in the back here than this one. And there are tools on certain editors that allow you to erase the background or darken it, which would not be very hard to do. And even if this was erased, it would look better than just having the picture cut out here. And we're also seeing a strange font again that reminds me of this font, but this one is a little more, oops, that's our next one. This one is a little more different and kind of goes with the theme a little more, but still, like these, not only is the title like in a strange font, but it's going this way, and most readers, when they read, they're going to be reading across like this because that's just how most titles are. You're not going to see one that's vertical like this. And it's also repeated and I'm believing that they probably did this. They copied this one and pasted over here, or whatever they ended up doing. You don't need to have your title repeated twice. And I think the reason they did it was to fill up this space here on one side, because this name was probably too long to fit all the way across here like their author name did. And you don't need to repeat your author name twice. I'm not saying this cover is horrible, I'm just saying it needs a lot of help. Mainly, the title needs to be centered. This needs to be either below, the author's name needs to be either below the title or above the title or wherever, but this title cannot be like this. Like, I would bet they would have a lot more success if they updated this cover to make it less Photoshop looking. Again, we have random shapes here. These colors just don't go. We have like this cream, this red, and this silver and black. There's just too much going on here and it's not blending in well together. Okay, enough about this cover. Let's go on to the next one. Alright, so this one I think is a step up from the last one, but there's still a lot going on here, and we're going to talk about why. Now, this one may be one of the better ones. Let's dive right into this. So, Vlad the Impaler, we have a read ratio of about 529,000 to 32,000. This does fall short of the golden ratio. This is a 101 part story. I didn't even see that when I looked these stories up. This is longer than the other story, guys. This other one was like 78. This one is a 100-part story. That's crazy. Alright, so what I like about this cover is that there is some kind of cool, mysterious shapes here. So we got a man's face here in the background. We have like what looks to be a clock here, which kind of blends in too. I'm not really sure why it says dead, Vlad the Impaler. It looks almost like it says dead, but it's Vlad. But maybe that's just my weird eyesight. And then we have what looks to be a character here. We have a red beam. This looks like it could be like some kind of sci-fi, like horror, vampire thing going on here. We got blood dripping down. But one thing I noticed is that, can you guys see what we're missing? We're missing the author's name. And the author could have easily put their name down here if they wanted to. But I think this is a pretty interesting cover, but what's going on here is just too much. We have too much going on, and it's hard if you're scrolling through on your phone. It's going to be hard to read this word here and this one, just because we have a lot of different colors. Even though the theme is good, the theme goes with the story, I believe, but there's just too much going on, and the font needs to be much clearer. Like, the font isn't centered, and that's another no-no in my opinion. Like, we want the font to be centered. The font does go with the story, I believe, but I think this is a different type of font, which usually want your title to be all in the same font. So if this was in big white letters, like at the top or in the middle or at the bottom, chances are people are gonna actually see your title much better. So we want to focus on that too. So it is easy to get carried away making your cover, putting lots of images in there that fit your story. And I think that might have been what happened here. But again, we're also seeing some kind of like animation, and we already have a character here, but I can't tell if this is an illustration or an actual photo that was photoshopped. But we kind of want everything to go together. So if we're using a real person here, a real clock here, we don't want to have images in the cover that are like illustrations or that's artwork. So if you're using like real life photos, that's how you should have all your pictures in the thing, as real life photos. And like in the background here, it looks pretty fake, but it may be real. But we want, if we're using like a real image of the city and then you have the character's face, you probably don't want to use like fan artwork or other like CGI things. Like normally you just want to stay completely away from CGI in artwork if you're blending a bunch of photos together, because it's just going to make it look cleaner. And in this one there's too much going on, but I do believe that this fits the type of photos, the type of images we have in this cover fit the story. But there's just too much going on here and the title is not easy to see. Okay, enough about this story, let's move on. Alright, so we're gonna move into the better, the more, the book covers that actually are pretty decent. Not perfect, but are more decent than the ones we've just seen. Okay, so let's dive right into this. We have this novel, it's called City in the Air, steampunk adventure novel, and immediately the first thing I can see when I look at this is a very clean image in the background and very easy to read title. And also, look at this, they have their author name right at the bottom, which is very good, and everything pretty much looks pretty clean. The title is in a different font than the author's name, which is, I suppose, okay in this case because at least the font matches. They're both white. So again, remember that the font is large for the title and it's colored white. And the background here is very, very clean and crisp looking and kind of intriguing, as we have a character looking out towards the reader, which is interesting. A city in the air. This is steampunk. The character in the background here looks to be wearing some kind of steampunk outfit. She's got the goggles on. This is a pretty decent cover. Now, believe it or not, let's go over here and look at the ratio and see if it lines up with the golden one, the 10-to-1. So we have 406,000 reads and 21,000 votes. This is a 31-part story. This actually falls pretty short of the golden ratio, the 400. We would be wanting 400,000 to 40,000. So 400 to 40. And we do not see that here. And again, let's go back and find the one that had the golden ratio. Here we are. This story had a better ratio than this one. Now that's probably shocking to a lot of you. And to be honest, I don't really know why, because I haven't read this book. But just looking at this cover, not to be really like concerned about or anything or mean, but this cover is not as clean or crisp as this one. Like, you just look at this. If I were to compare these side by side, chances are you're gonna say that, this book is probably gonna be a better one than the one that looks like this, just going off of the cover. But no, that's wrong. This book has a better ratio of reads to votes than this one. That's not to say that the other one is a better story than this one, but that is probably shocking to most of you that a story with the cover like this is doing a lot better. Now that's very impressive to me. You guys can comment below what you think. Maybe you've read one of these yourself. But again, we haven't even looked in the story, and that's something we're going to be doing. I'm going to make another video where we're going to go look inside of the first chapter and talk about, basically in a matter of seconds, how the reader decides like the quality of your work. Right now we're just doing covers, so we'll still focus on this. So again, that was very interesting here. We saw this one falls short of the golden ratio, and it is a pretty decent looking cover. So let's move on to the next one, which we got a little sneak peek of earlier. So this one's called Augustine. So this is good. We have a nice clean, even though the lettering isn't white, we have this nice little shape here that fits pretty well with the background and makes the title stand out, which works. And down here we have their author name, and in smaller lettering we have a quote here, it looks like. So this looks pretty like it might be some kind of, just not even reading the summary, maybe it's like a dark romance or something, I have no idea. Maybe it's about working in the office or something because he's wearing a suit. I have no idea. But this works because we have a dark background and the lettering of the title matches the background and also matches the theme. We have dark colors with a little bit of white, and then we use this white to bring out the character's face and the lettering down here. This is a very decent title. Now, does it match the 10:1 ratio? So let's look. So we have 189,000 reads and we have 9,000 votes, 21-part story. This one, again, this one does fall short of the ratio. Ideally, we'd be looking for about 18,000 votes here, but we only have 9,000. Now, you might be thinking that this ratio I have is kind of like, maybe you don't like it or you don't think I'm making sense saying it, but honestly, like, I think that's the ratio you have to shoot for. Like, I've always found when I read stories and they have that ratio that they're pretty decent. Because chances are, if you have a story that has like 2 million views, do you think it's going to be any good if it only has 20,000 votes? Like, shouldn't it have like 200,000 votes if it has 2 million views rather than just 2,000? These ratios are more important and they'll come up again. We'll talk about them much more in future videos to come. But enough about that. This is a pretty good cover here, mainly because of the theme and the background is simple. And just like the other cover that we just saw, there's only one character in the cover. And it's okay to have more than one, but it just needs to look clean. Like, if you have more than one, let's please not have it look like this. Please try to make it look cleaner. I'm not saying it for me, I'm just saying it for your own good, because you're gonna get more readers if you have a better cover. That's just how it works, sadly. A lot of it does not have, when they first look at your story, the first thing they're going to look at is the cover and the title, and then they're going to read the summary. That's just how it is. So you really want to be careful that your cover is good. It doesn't have to be as good as this one. This may not even be professional, but it looks pretty professionally done. It does not have to look as good as this, but it needs to look clean. And this one, they could have even have made this themselves easily. This one looks clean though. Maybe it's not as like crisp as this one, but this one is pretty good. Alright, so let's move on. I believe we're coming down to the last few. This may be the last one, I forget. Alright, so this one's called Smoke Jim Hopper. Here we have the title in white lettering, which is very good because our background here is also dark. But by having this white lettering, we're also drawing in this lightning here that makes the lightning stand out more. I don't know if these lines here are necessary. We could also move this title up and it would probably stand out even more up here. And the author name here, you can't really see it very well, but at least it's here. It looks like it's in the same font kind of as this, which is very good. And this is a very simple cover. So we just have this is probably about volcanoes, I'm assuming. I'm not even going to read the summary. So This is a pretty good cover. Like, we have smoke. Okay, that makes sense. We're talking about volcanoes here, whatever. This is a pretty good cover because the title is in white, bold letters. It's pretty easy to see here. If it was moved up a little bit, it may even be easier to see. They could even enlarge their author name and it would not take away from the picture or the other title. I mean, the title at all. So this is a pretty good one. But I think going back, I think we can all agree that this one is probably the better of the ones we've seen so far. They're all pretty good though, but I just think this one is so crisp that it just is more eye-catching. Not to say that it's the best, it's just more eye-catching because the photo is so crisp and clear. So this one is very good too. Again, just to reiterate, we have one image in the background and that is perfectly fine. We have a clear title that's in white bold lettering, and we have the author's name here that could be enlarged, but I think it's okay the way it is. Alright, so I believe that was the last one. Okay, so now we're just gonna just like summarize here and just discuss what ended up working for these covers and what ended up not working. So what makes a cover intriguing and eye-catching? Clean images. We want to use clean images that are clear and crisp. They're not blurry, they're not smudged, they're not cropped, they're not obviously photoshopped, they're not crowded, there's not a lot going on like we see back in here. There's no strange shapes. Not to keep going back to the story, but these are weird shapes to me. Like, we don't need to see these shapes behind the lettering, and I'm guaranteed the only reason that I did that was to make the title pop out more. And we don't want to see the title repeated downward like this. We only need to see the title once, and the same goes for their author name. Strange shapes. We don't want to see strange shapes. We don't want to see strange color mixes that don't match the background. So let's go look at this one. These colors all match the theme of the color on the cover. But if we chose a story like this, these colors don't go well together. Some people may argue they do, but they just don't. So if they chose if they chose a totally different font that was a lot bigger and that the letters were thicker so they were easier to see, and they made the color of the title white, it would have been a lot more pleasing to the eye for readers when they see the cover. And I guarantee you they would have had more readers if they did that, because people would have stopped by and it would have looked like a better cover and they would have been more interested, in simple terms. Alright, so again, title needs to be easy to read and the cover needs to match the genre of the book. So if you have a story about going to the beach for the summer with your best friends, that's basically the plot of your story, you're probably not going to want to have a picture of a giant dragon on it, unless the dragon is somehow involved in the story. I think you get the idea. Alright, so what doesn't make a good cover? We already kind of hit some of the main things back above this part, if I can talk right. So what doesn't make a good cover? So many covers nowadays are basically counting on lewd or mature pictures of people that are real life images to draw in readers. You do not need to have pictures like this to get an audience. There are literally books with better ratios that look like this. There's no lewd or strange pictures that are mature for like... There's even pictures that have like... It's crazy, but again, we have a very good ratio here, and this is probably, I would have to say, one of the lesser good covers on this video, to say the least. So this ratio is doing pretty good, and they don't have any crazy images. So we want to stay away from lewd or mature pictures, hands down, because you don't even... People do that just so people stop and look and think this is crazy, like, why do they have a picture like that? And most of the time, not surprisingly, those stories are going to be romance or books that are rated mature. But if you already have a mature image on your book cover, you're not doing yourself any favors, because that means you're automatically going to lose an audience that might read your mature book. And that's just something you're not doing anything good for yourself by having that, because people are going to look at that and be like, oh, I don't want to read that, if they're not into that kind of thing, which surprisingly there is a large group of people on Wattpad who are not going to want to read a mature story, because maybe they're not mature, or they're just not interested, or they don't believe in that, whatever. But yes, we want to stay away from having lewd or mature pictures. Alright, so again, no title. Yes, there are covers that have no title on them. No author. Even books that have hundreds of thousands of reads don't have author names on them, and that's important. You want to have the author's name on it. Using anime or CGI graphics. We talked about this. Please, please do not use these types of images. Readers will not... It's almost like no matter how you use them, they just don't look right. They don't look professional. And if the reader thinks your cover's gonna not look professional, they're gonna think your writing style probably isn't professional or good too. That's just the way it is. That probably sounds bad to you, but that's the reality of the situation. Most people, if they see covers that don't look good, or that look like someone, I don't know, like someone just wasn't taking the story seriously, or just slapped on a picture of like a CGI graphic. It just doesn't look clean. Using strange fonts. We do not want to use strange fonts because it just makes the story title harder to view, harder to see. And this goes down here. We can say using strange color schemes and shapes. They do not look good on your cover here. Let's go back. I know I don't like to pick on things, but this is just a good example, a prime example of using bad shapes, bad color scheme, bad arrangement of images. It's just, there's too much here that I can't even have time to point out. I understand they're trying to be organized and show the pictures of the characters, but it just doesn't work. And again, I have to give them credit because they were the only story in this whole entire video that reached the golden ratio. So congrats to them, but I think it's time we need to update your cover. And maybe it's working, maybe they should keep it, I don't know, I'll let you guys decide. But in my opinion, I think they could definitely update this cover and make it look a lot better. And I think readers would appreciate it. Do the book justice. Alright, so again, bad Photoshop, bad color schemes and shapes. All of this we want to avoid. And how do we avoid it? I'm going to show you in another future video how to make a cover. Very easy. This is not something where you have to be tech savvy or a professional Photoshopper. It's going to be very simple, very easy, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a future video. Alright, so I think we've talked enough about covers. I want to hear what you guys think about this. Feel free to comment, share your thoughts, and it's always interesting because what works for some people when they make their covers doesn't work for everyone. So these all are subject to opinion, but these are just the themes I've seen over the years. So let me know what you think, and thanks for watching the video.